Hello, and welcome to the first round of Battle of the Decades, the show where I, Chuchu of Chuchu is a Ranker, recap my Album of the Year series, correct any glaring mistakes I made via my Albums of the Year choices, and also indulge in a totally nonsense yet also hopefully fun tournament to find out what was the best decade in music. And on this episode we're going to be throwing all the zeros into the ring: 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000 and 2010. So let's take a look at our Albums of the Year roster. From 1960 we have A Date with the Everly Brothers by the Everly Brothers. From 1970 we have Lola vs Powerman and the Money Go Round by the Kinks. From 1980 we have Vienna by Ultravox. From 1990 we have The Good Son by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. From the year of 2000 we have 100 Broken Windows by Idlewild. And from 2010 we have He Who Saw the Deep by I Like Trains. And as for corrections to this list, well, there aren't any. I'm pretty happy with these selections. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank into the very fabric of time itself. This is Battle of the Decades Round 1. Coming in last place and netting the 1960s 1 point, we have A Date with the Everly Brothers by the Everly Brothers from 1960, which was the duo's fourth LP. And here we have a very delightful and charming album of typical pre-Beatles pop that hits all those wonderful retro sweet spots that draw us back to this particular era. Cue a lot of slow dance ready ballads, 1950s style rock and roll guitar work, an appealingly scant runtime of only 27 minutes and a twee innocent appeal. This record feels like it's from a time before cynicism was invented. Highlights include the opener, Made to Love, which has some nice rattling toms and a woody oaken tone to its guitar work. Tracks like That's Just Too Much and Always It's You have that treacly slow pace and rich balladeering style that you crave from 1950s music. Baby What You Want Me to Do has an incredibly catchy vocal line and a fun rock and roll swing composition that immediately dredges up images of old American diners from the long lost past. While Love Hurts is another one of those arpeggiated ballads and went on to become a standard of the genre, prompting a million cover versions. So yeah, this album is great for what it is, but beyond the beautiful antiquated stylings and retro charm, there's not much else really happening. When compared to music in the post-Beatles world, the Everly Brothers have a hard time competing. The tracks lack any kind of depth, complexity or lyrical insight. But we all know that's not what you come to this era for. You come for the charm and a reminder of a world now lost to the vagaries of time. And A Date with the Everly Brothers has a metric shit ton of that. Plus, when you compare this LP to most of its contemporaries, it comes across as strikingly consistent. 4.5 stars. Next up, and netting the 2000's 2 points, we have 100 Broken Windows by Idlewild from the year 2000, which was the band's second LP. And on this release, the Scottish jangle pop maestros are reigning in the chaos of their clattering debut, Hope Is Important, and imbuing their heavy guitar rock with a stark, wintry bleakness. And in case you've never had the pleasure of coming across Idlewild before, the band are, at least at this point in their career, akin to IRS-era 1980s REM. Albeit fed through a Fugazi-esque distorted punk lens, with frontman Roddy Womble's bookish lyrics and melody lines strongly recalling Michael Stipe. And this LP perfectly captures the right balance of heaviness. It's just enough to be thrilling and full of gnarly energy, but also just restrained enough to avoid being overwhelming or making everything sound one note or samey. The consistency of quality between the tracks is also kept high, and the record notably lacks any filler. The tracklist and sequencing runs as smooth as butter from the first track to the last. Highlights on an angular and cold yet warmly energetic release includes the mosh-inducing opener, Little Discouraged, which has a great headbanging sing-along chorus. Rosability feeds its tuneful jangle through the monstrous distortion machine, as Roddy Womble screams to the high heavens about Gertrude Stein. Idea Track is fantastic with its Radiohead-esque experimentation and ridiculously strident power chords. Let Me Sleep Next to the Mirror is beautifully sad and surprisingly delicate, despite its caterwauling guitars and badass harmonic riffs. Listen to What You've Got begs you to find the nearest drywall and put a U-sized hole in it, with the song's whiplash energy guaranteed to incite some sort of demented thrashing motion. While Quiet Crown lets the band's sullen beauty shine, with Roddy's thoughtful lyrics standing a step above most bands that dare to rock out as hard as Idlewild do. But yeah, I'm just scratching the surface there. Every track on this album is a joyous thing to behold, from the cheery sounding pogo pop of Mistake Pageant, to the gently anthemic Actually It's Darkness, to the maudlin tones of Closer, the bronze medal, as Roddy sighs, "You've got nothing but determination to come in third." It's all just really great stuff. And for me personally, this LP also acted as like a gateway into heavier guitar music and eventually metal, so I'm also grateful to it for that. So yeah, this is a fantastic record and one that I can't recommend highly enough. 5 stars. Coming in next and netting the 1980s 3 points, we have Vienna by Ultravox from 1980, which is the band's 4th LP, although it was the first release with the band's most famous lineup, and more specifically Midjure on vocals. And what we have here is a strikingly consistent and atmospheric new wave synthpop album. The record is really angular and static, featuring clean, spacious melody lines and an aloof sounding icy demeanour. It kind of sounds like what would happen if you somehow put Stanley Kubrick in charge of a 1980s pop album. And from start to finish, this record slaps while managing to always maintain its glacial, cold vibe and aesthetic. As for highlights, well, that would be everything, as the album doesn't skip a beat at any point during its 43-minute runtime. But my cherry picks would be New Europeans, which is awesome with its scratchy stuttergun guitars, post-punky darkness and instantly catchy chorus. Sleepwalk is great fun with its thumping dance beats and kitsch theatrical elements. Mr. X is a cool Vangelis Blade Runner-y style synth tune, but before Blade Runner was even a thing. Its mysterious spoken word vocals and menacing melodies standing out as a great off-kilter highlight. Closer, All Stood Still ends the album with a fun slice of catchy pop, its lightweight nature and buzzing metallic guitars feeling like a breath of fresh air after a deep dive into a freezing ocean. While title track Vienna is one of the greatest and most iconic synth ballads ever put to tape. Its stratospheric sing-along chorus, icy stark elegance and beautiful faux string break are the stuff of 80s new wave legend. Mwah! Chef's kiss, that track is awesome. But yeah, despite some strong individual tunes, the record's biggest highlight is its overall atmosphere and spotless cohesion. This is one of those albums that works so well as a singular flowing piece of music. And for me, this is truly one of the greatest synthpop albums of all time. 5 stars. Next up, and netting the 1990s 4 points, we have The Good Son by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds from 1990, which was the band's 6th LP. And on this record, Nick is moving away from the more gothic leanings of his previous work and crafts an album full of dolorous sweeping ballads and musical soundscapes that sound like they've sauntered in from the American Wild West. On paper, that seems to be a bit of an odd mix, but Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds have pulled it off perfectly here, providing a velveteen, grandiose LP that feels like sinking into a centuries-old leather chair. Every track on this album delivers the epic goods while also adding to the record's overall theme and atmosphere. Highlights from an LP pretty much entirely comprised of highlights includes the title track The Good Son, which has a sinister urgency mixing with its super catchy deep South American Changang blues. The Ship song is one of my favourite songs ever recorded. its dovetailing balladry and big-hearted romanticism making me go all wobbly in the knees. Mwah! Chef's kiss, I absolutely adore that tune. Sorrow's Child is another wilting string-soaked ballad that is waterlogged by briny misery. The Weeping Song has a dramatic twilight atmosphere to its western country-tinged malcontent. The Hammer Song turns the gothic darkness back on for a murderous tale of the wild frontier, while the Witness Song brings a touch of needed energy to the back end of the record with its charging American gospel blues and theatrical overtones. So yeah, this record is epic, rich, dark and as miserable as the day is long, yet also deeply romantic in its own weird idiosyncratic kind of way. And for me personally, Nick Cave never really got much better than this. 5 stars.
Burn your bridges down. We make a little history, baby. Every time you call around, your face is grown sad now. For you know that the time is nigh.
Next up, netting the 2010's 5 points, we have He Who Saw the Deep by I Like Trains from 2010, which was the band's second LP. And I Like Trains are one of the many indie post-punk bands that rose up in the wake of Interpol's seminal Turn on the Bright Lights LP. But this album right here elevates itself out of that genre mire by presenting a masterclass of well-worked sadness, expertly building atmospherics and a deeply emotive sense of exfoliating catharsis. In fact, when I think about the cathartic feeling you get from melancholy rock records, you know, that feeling of hitting the bottom, purging yourself and finally being able to breathe for a few minutes before those feelings of existential dread inevitably come creeping back in, He Who Saw the Deep by I Like Trains is pretty hard to beat. The band play really well with space on the record, more often than not letting the delicacy and emotion of the tunes take centre stage. Really good examples of that are Hope Is Not Enough and Broken Bones. Hope Is Not Enough really leans into its minimalism, with the track's simple guitar riff absolutely jumping out of the speakers, while Broken Bones uses sorrowful strings and distant drums to pull on the heartstrings, as singer David Martin sings of the world being wiped out by giant tsunamis, whispering in his last moments, "I turn to face the cold embrace of some forgotten sea, as we climb mountains to buy ourselves time." Speaking of the sea, the album is also a loose concept one, with most of the tracks holding some sort of nautical connection, both lyrically and sonically. From the rolling tidal guitars of When Were We Kings, which feels like being stuck in a rowboat on a heaving ocean, to the sinking sea monster illusions on the grandiose title track, He Who Saw the Deep, to the clattering percussion and badass rhythmic stomp of Progress is a Snake, which sees Martin singing about Europe sinking into the sea, to the gigantic 8-minute ballad Sea of Regrets, with its beautiful Piscean outro and lyrical defeat. I will leave this world in pieces. I will leave it to the scarab and the crows. Under sea and under soil, in a million years, our bones will be your oil. So yeah, I'm just scratching at the surface there, as every track on the record is great. From the seductive pulse of Sirens, to the driving kick-ass bass of These Feet of Clay, to the head and hands misery of A Divorce Before Marriage, it's all one hell of an emotional ride. He Who Saw the Deep by I Like Trains is ample proof that perfect albums can come from anywhere. This LP is not famous or iconic, and it's sold a bare minimum of copies, but it is absolutely fucking awesome and easy 5 stars. Coming in first place and netting the 1970s a full 6 points, we have Lola vs Powerman and The Money Go Round by the Kinks from 1970, which was the band's 8th LP. And this record sees the band at their absolute zenith, being the last stop on one of the best run of albums ever, which took in the likes of Face to Face, Something Else by the Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society, Arthur and the Decline and Fall of the British Empire, and of course this LP, Lola vs Powerman and The Money Go Round Part 1, to give it its full title. henceforth to be referred to as Lola vs Powerman for sanity protection reasons. And this is a pitch-perfect jangly rock record that saw the Kinks using a lot of clean lines and spacious compositions, while also expanding their musical palette with much more in the way of pianos and organs and more use of acoustic guitars. And lyrically speaking, this LP is a concept album. I mean, of course it is, this is Ray Davies we're talking about. The concept here is Ray basically slagging off the music industry and the label bigwigs, not so subtly insinuating that they're all money-grubbing douchebags who wouldn't know good music if it hit them right between the eyes. This is obviously pretty interesting and often quite funny, albeit laced with some genuine snarling anger. I mean, Ray is definitely not a happy chappy on this particular LP. And as for the songs themselves and the consistency of quality, well, good grief, there are more classic bangers on this than you can shake the proverbial stick at. Highlights from a stamped and dated masterpiece include Strangers, which is awesome with its cracked lilting melody, steady beats and indie jangle cool. The likes of the vaudevillian Denmark Street and the glammy Top the Pops have fun lyrics that savage the Seven Garleys and A&R Pillocks of the world. Get Back in Line is one of my favourite Kinks songs with its supremely catchy vocals, misery-soaked melody and angry yet resigned lyrics about people with power stomping on those beneath them. Lola is a fun, super catchy and decidedly edgy radio hit that became one of the Kinks' most iconic tunes. This Time Tomorrow is extraordinarily beautiful with its wistful lyrics, rolling lightweight jangle walk and twinkling piano lines. While Ape Man, I'm an ape man, I'm an ape man, yeah I'm an ape man, is a late album banger, is daft earwormy pop bringing a delightful sense of irreverent flightiness to the table. So yeah, Lola vs Powerman is an unassailable classic, it's as simple as that. The record is an absolute joy to listen to from start to finish. If you like jangle pop and you somehow haven't heard this, I mean what the hell have you been doing with your life? Rectify that immediately. This album is jangle pop perfection, 5 stars. So, stop ruminating on how big those genital warts are going to get and turn your attention to the scoreboard. Obviously not that much to report just yet, but the scores are running as thus. In first place is the 1970s with 6 points. In second are the 2010s with 5 points. In third are the 1990s with 4 points. In fourth is the 1980s with 3 points. In fifth are the 2000s with 2 points, and the 1960s are in last place with 1 point. And that's the first round of Battle of the Decades in the bag. Of course I know that you'd rank these records differently, so why not sound off in the comments and tell me how you'd rank them. Of course it almost goes without saying, but I fully invite you to make your own version of this tournament with your own personal albums of the year and post that in the comments too. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.